Hello, you're on Initiative Africa. My name is Asha Sampet. Welcome to your weekly magazine featuring Africa on the move through smart innovations and initiatives that work. This week, we put the spotlight on some of our special guests on our show in 2022. Here are our main highlights. A retrospective of 2022 with some of our special guests, a year more than ever marked by Africa's extraordinary capacity to adapt and innovate in a particularly troubled international environment. We find some of our guests this year: Katia, Kuseke and Noella Ligan from the startup Fresh Africa, Jean Koivogui, president of the data visualization company Technatium, but also the genome specialist Dr Abasi Ene-Obong, as well as Bola Bardet, who wants to invest in the health of Africans, and finally, the lyrical artist Adriana Bignani Lesca. Gabonese teenagers are passionate about football, but the dream can become a nightmare. Beware of fake recruiters from European clubs.
If I have to speak of an experience during my career, I'd say it was when I got scammed by a fake agent the year before my trip abroad.
We'll listen to some jazz in Lagos. It takes place at the Truth Village, one of the most popular clubs in the Nigerian metropolis, where trumpeter Dr Abasi awaits us.
But so there was this fateful day, a trumpet player came to the church to play. After the church service, my mom took me to the trumpet player and then handed me over to the trumpet player, saying she wants him to teach me the trumpet, whose name is Dr Abasi.
The FIFA World Cup has just ended in Qatar, and it will remain a great moment for Africa, reaching the semi-finals for the first time thanks to Morocco's victory against Portugal. And like every edition, it ignited the African supporters on the continent. Thousands of young football players dream of Kylian Mbappe or Sadio Mane, but there can be a long way from dream to reality. This is how, in Gabon, teenagers lured by vague promises of lucrative contracts in European clubs have become easy prey for bogus sports recruiters. Fortunately, a slow but constant awareness is starting to spread, as our correspondent in Gabon, Jean-Rovis Debani, observed. Sibang is one of the poorest neighborhoods in Libreville. Here, football is the favorite pastime of young people. A dream for many, but also sometimes a source of disillusion. Atoms come here once a week for regular training sessions.
This is where I took my first steps. It's a mythical stadium that has seen a lot of footballers, at least the pride of Gabonese football. When I see the stadium, immediately I have the nostalgia that comes back to me about my first steps in the first division. They're unforgettable moments.
At the age of 14, Atem was already playing in first division clubs, with dreams of Champions Leagues in his head, until the day when some acquaintances contacted him to play in a French club. Around mid-September 2016, Atem arrived alone at the training camp at the Leonardo da Vinci Sports Park in Paris. He will never hear from his agent again. His parents had to pay for his return to Gabon. It was then that another agent contacted him, promising him a tryout at a French club. Atem would therefore give a lot of money to finance his dream of a contract in a second division French club before realizing that he has been duped again.
If I have to speak of an experience during my career, I'd say it was when I got scammed by a fake agent the year before my trip abroad. I'm certainly not the only one. My case is exposed today because I'm actually talking about it. I worked with an agent who promised me a trip abroad, and since I was already abroad, I wanted to leave immediately. I gave myself body and soul.
Even today, when Atem hits the ball, he's dreaming to shine far from African lands. In this academy, more than 250 young people, aged from 3 to 17, are trained free of charge. These kids are not immune to ill-intentioned agents. But here, access to training sessions is strictly controlled. The young people of this training center are informed, protected against false recruiters. At the head of Jardin du Football du Gabon,
a former Gabonese international player. He always holds a preventive speech for these young players who are usually between 14 and 17 years old.
I am a former footballer. I know how it works. The rules today have changed a lot. FIFA controls everything at agent level. It must also be said that a boy will not leave my training center if I do not have all the guarantees, not necessarily financial, but above all, I'm still able to pay for a plane ticket to fly and see the conditions that my protege is going to face. I will be firm in the same way as I am in Gabon here, in the way I follow them at the international level, so it will be really difficult for one of my boys to leave Gabon while I have no guarantees.
At the international level, FIFA has indeed enacted a regulation prohibiting the transfer of a minor abroad if the conditions of education and housing are not optimal. According to Article 19 of the FIFA regulations on the status and transfer of players, the international transfer of a player is only permitted if the player is at least 18 years old. But for this, Italian promoter Daniel Del Piero, who crisscrosses Africa in search of young talents, flaws persist.
Allora, noi abbiamo per esempio dei vincoli in Italia ben precisi.
We have very specific constraints in Italy. Anyone who is linked to us has an obligation to tie in there. Obviously, there are also the same kind of characters in Italy, the so-called agents, selling dreams to young children without ever achieving anything. Our academy is very serious. It is affiliated with the Atalanta Football Bergamo Club. It is serious and committed to enhancing the potential of our children. Our goal is therefore to prevent deceitful experiences for everyone, because we will act as a bridge between Gabon and Italy to manage the future of the talents who will eventually be able to play at the international level in the best way.
Fraudulent sports intermediaries, Lumiere and Gema knows very well this phenomenon. And according to certain sources within the Gabonese Football Federation, there are ramifications in Switzerland and Turkey. But for this recruiter, it is the legal vacuum which frames the profession of agent in Gabon, which is at the origin of this scourge.
I take this opportunity to appeal to the authorities so that we can now organize a program to allow everyone to practice legally, since in the Gabonese Republic there is no training of courses to allow someone to become a qualified agent.
Il n'y a pas de concours avéré pour permettre que X ou Y soit réputé agent. C'est aussi en réalité
It is also this administrative void that favors the infiltration of agents who are not in fact reputable nor qualified.
Now, 22 years old Atem has great hopes of playing one day in the club of his dreams and thus shine like many African footballers in major international championships.
The news of the past few months on the international scene has been dominated by major upheavals. In a tough context plagued by the Russian-Ukrainian war, how can the continent adapt to the inflationary spiral of food prices and counter the dependence on wheat imports? We asked the question to two friends and business partners, Katia Kuseke and Noella Ligan, co-founders of the startup Fresh Africa, sourcing supplies from African farmers. Take a look.
Paradoxically, I think this crisis can be an opportunity because it can give Africans the chance to reappropriate their wealth. After all, until now, they are unfortunately victims. Even here, we realized that wheat imports came mainly from Ukraine. But we have ancestral cereals, so I think this could be an opportunity to turn to these cereals. Some countries are self-sufficient, so I think it's an opportunity. We have to take it like that. But I think we have seen here that with the European model, we have reached the end of all these seeds that are hybrids. Even here, we're trying to return to traditional agriculture. So would it be the right solution today in Africa to go towards a solution that has not worked elsewhere? I don't know. We have to ask ourselves the question. And, on the other hand, many different techniques can replace these hybrid seeds. We can talk about permaculture and agroforestry. Wouldn't that also be a way of testing? We know that other plants can be used to chase away, for example, certain small beasts or insects that will attack certain plants. Can't we use nettle as a fertilizer instead, and so on?
Another reason to be hopeful is that data visualization technology now gives African administrations better solutions for managing cadastres, preserving biodiversity, and even improving security. Can we really put an end to land disputes from the skies? Jean Koivogui, president of the company Technatium, has some potential solutions. Let's hear it from him.
In fact, our data processing, visualization and collection solutions make it easier for the average citizen to access information. For example, we're developing solutions that make it possible to digitize land registry management systems. In other words, land management, which is an important element in the lives of Africans. There are a lot of land disputes that cause conflict, because when you buy a property and you don't know how the property is run or what precise area it covers, it can lead to disputes over land. But thanks to our solutions, because we are digitizing the process and collection of data on properties, local communities can automate the whole process of granting land titles from a single platform, to which people will have full access. When you want to buy land, you'll no longer buy land without knowing how many times the land has been sold, and so on. The platform has all the information, and it allows you to go through all the necessary steps and due processes. And on top of that, we secure and guarantee transactions using technology called blockchain. It's technology that effectively makes it possible to beat fraud with a system that provides legal evidence. It's a matter of practice and can equally apply to everything related to address management in cities. Most African cities don't have addresses, and we are making this process automatic through our apps, and for coastal and border surveillance too, by being able to view data from satellite images. So it's very important for issues of security, issues of biodiversity, and so on.
Biodiversité, etc.
Welcome to the second part of our show. I will now take you to discover the nightlife in Lagos for this second report. 2 years ago, the Nigerian megalopolis, like many cities in Africa and elsewhere, woke up hungry for music and dance after months of lockdown. And in this jazz club, the music and chants enthusiasts, our journalist Hugo Ioana had slipped into the rehearsals of composer and trumpeter Dr Abasi, a rising star on the Nigerian scene, to listen to his cocktail of jazz and Afrobeat. Take a listen.
It's a typical rehearsal day at the Truth. With COVID-19 restrictions in place, social gatherings and open performances are on hold in Lagos, Nigeria's entertainment capital. The band's rehearsal do not contravene the COVID-19 orders in Nigeria. Nigeria over the years has been a nurturing ground for an array of musical talents. It is home to Abong, one of Nigeria's in-demand trumpeter, composer, and band leader. Born and raised in Lagos, the entertainment and commercial nerve center of Africa's most populous nation, Nigeria.
I developed interest in playing the conga drums in the church, and I remembered I also attempted playing the drum set. But so there was this fateful day, a trumpet player came to the church to play. After the church service, my mom took me to the trumpet player and then handed me over to the trumpet player, saying she wants him to teach me the trumpet, whose name is Adolphus.
Embracing his passion, he began playing the trumpet at the young age of 14, and by the age 16, he went under the tutelage of various professional artists such as Victor Ademofe, the late legendary Sir Victor Olaya, and the phenomenal Femi Kuti. He acquired his musical education from Peter King College of Music, Moson School of Music, and the University of Cape Town, South Africa.
I got exposed to the likes of Malcolm X, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, and a whole lot of others who actually reflects consciousness, the black consciousness. I think those are the basic influence I had, musically, and, for me to decide that I wanted to be a musician or end up as a musician, which I am today.
His inspiration from jazz, Afrobeat, Ekombi, highlife and earthly elements, wind, water and fire, forges his musical philosophy, which he calls earth music. This epitomizes the blend of music he dishes out from his sacred place, The Truth, in Lagos.
We all know what Truth is all about. It's like a musical center where people are allowed to come in to display their talent and given the ability to be able to tell the truth about the society at large. And as the manager here, we tend to make the place accommodating for people and put things in order for a successful program here. So, like our weekly activities, from Monday till Sunday, we operate 24 hours.
Well, for me, the process of me writing my music, or the process of me composing music and the songs I write and I perform are basically of the fact that I need to educate the human race. I need to educate Africa, which is like the bone of contention for me always in my thoughts. The African man, like I said, they don't have this history. See, they don't know that Africa isn't the original name for Africa. They don't know that Akebulan is the original name for Africa.
He performs with his enigmatic band, Etuk's Philosophy, whose rhythms and beat unleashes the musical prowess of Etuk. Together with his band, they have forged a bond beyond the stage. His song has a positive message that addresses the ills in the society, as well as appeals to the heart and mind of listeners.
We've been playing for a couple of years now, and we express our thoughts through music. Yeah, and the challenges and the experience of playing for the Etuk's Philosophy is one of the best bands in the world, because it comprises of lots of instruments and instrumentalists. Earth music is it talks about life, talks about love, talks about peace, talks about love for humanity, and it brings unity together. We express our emotions through musically.
The Truth Club is a buzzing habitat that attracts people of like musical minds, united under the melodious tunes of Abong's earth music.
In the next 10 years, the Truth is going to be in all corners of the world, also still carrying the flag and that education of the black, that education of the African man.
With 2 albums and an extended play, he has performed on various stages within and outside Africa with over 10,000 ticket sales. His song Black Data was number 2 on the Corner playlist on Apple Music Jazz, and his album Africa Today was on the top 10 playlist of BBC 3 Radio. He leads a new generation of jazz music performers and lovers of his rare genre of earth music.
Health, a major concern on the continent and for our guests in 2022. Starting with Dr Abasi Ene-Obong, this Nigerian cancer and genome specialist has embarked on a lifelong adventure to bring better disease treatments to Africa and the world. He had explained to us how the African genome, the oldest in the world according to him, was the key to the future. Take a look.
And why is the African genome important? It's because it's the most historical of genes. Modern humans originated in the African continent over 200,000 years ago. Now, in genetics, we say that as people started migrating out of Africa to other continents like Australia, to Asia, to Europe, that we had what is called a bottleneck effect. A bottleneck effect is where people who are migrating take just a subset of the genetic diversity in the place and go start a new colony elsewhere. Africa, being the source, still has all of that human genetic diversity. And if we can understand genetics in an African context, then we can understand genetics in a human context, because then we can understand not just about me, who I live in Africa, but also about the Caucasian or the Asian, because we're all connected as a result of our genes. If I don't know the genetic cause of a disease, sometimes it makes it difficult for me to treat that disease. And by understanding that, you can then have better drugs that treat that particular root cause. Now, by doing more and more of these studies in Africa, genetic studies, we get to understand the molecular signature of disease in Africa. But that also translates to the global population. There are some drugs that have been developed by looking at the genetics of Africans. Those drugs are being used to treat people all over the world. And so, again, by doing such studies, we get to understand ourselves more. It increases the chance of insights and discoveries that lead to better healthcare for everyone, Africans and non-Africans.
And the financial industry is also looking at the health of Africans. And our next guest is part of the African diaspora who took up the challenge. Bola, a graduate of a renowned business school, has chosen to invest in the wealth of better living for Africans. She invented a new concept of insurance for the diaspora and relatives back home. Take a look.
We are solving several problems in the diaspora and locally. So the first problem locally is that the penetration rate of health insurance is very low. That means 3%, which means that 97% of the population does not have access to an insurance solution to pay for their health expenses and must pay out of their own pockets. So that's the first problem we are solving by providing access to insurance and other solutions to these people. In addition, we have a target population: vulnerable people, pregnant women, and people with chronic diseases. These people are even more excluded from the insurance system. They are not insurable. Unfortunately, insurers don't want them, and on top of that, they are left on their own in their healthcare journey. They don't have any answers to their basic questions about how to live better with their condition, what diet to follow, how to practice sports, and when you have diabetes, pregnant, and so on. So we provide solutions to all these problems. First of all, we give them a kind of coverage which is an alternative to insurance to help them pay for their expenses related to their medical conditions. And on top of that, we provide them with preventive advice and support, with people who are there to answer questions that may arise daily. So that's the problem we are tackling locally. The second problem, which is related but also extremely important, is finance, because the big barrier to quality healthcare on the continent is that people cannot afford to pay for their health expenses. And we bring this innovation, which allows relatives who have the financial means to do so to co-finance these needs with the beneficiaries.
And we end the year in style at the Opéra Garnier in Paris with an African Juno in the lyrical comedy Platée. It's the great Gabonese mezzo-soprano artist Adriana Bignani Lesca who played the wife of Zeus this summer, a great premiere and a real celebration of singing, theatre and choreography. She had told us about this exceptional experience. Take a look.
Adriana Bignani Lesca, welcome on Initiative Africa. This summer you made your debut at the Opéra National de Paris in the lyrical comedy Platée. How did you experience this moment when you stepped onto the stage of the Opéra Garnier for the first time?
Bonjour. Comment j'ai vécu ce moment?
Hello. Well, at the time I didn't realize because we were in the middle of rehearsals at the Paris Opera. I didn't pay any attention during the dress rehearsal, but it was on the day of the premiere that I said to myself, this is it, you're on the Garnier stage. Do you realize that? It's one of the most coveted stages in the world, and a young African woman on that stage. But can you believe it? And I was proud of myself for being there. And here on the day of the premiere, I realized that I was on the stage and living the moment.
You play Juno, the wife of Jupiter, who is quite angry. This is a challenging role for the mezzo-soprano that you are. What were the features of the character?
Well, I'll say yes and no. It's a bit challenging because in terms of range, I was a bit afraid that it was a little high for me. Because I'm a mezzo-contralto, but in terms of character, I understood why I was chosen. Because with my somber voice tone, I was able to give character in many ways, but mostly vocally and on stage. And the difficult part with Juno, I think, it's the waiting. The wait is really long. And when she arrives in the third act, you have to be on top of your game to perform this anger. And it's not easy to keep that energy all the way through when I'm not singing and to come on stage and actually provide that crucial moment when she needs to be accountable, when she needs to be told where her partner is.
And it's also a lot of stress to deal with during these first acts.
Yeah, that's it, the stress. In the beginning, it was a bit stressful, but now I've managed to find ways of coping. So I completely ignore the music, even if I watch TV while the production continues. And I try to do all the administrative stuff on my phone. I really forget about it. And at the time of the intermission, I refocus and I try to motivate myself physically because my body is getting cold. It's normal. And I try to warm up to be ready. And now that's it. I'm starting to really get into the skin of Juno. I mean, I have to incarnate Juno and not the other way around. It's not the role that takes over me, but I take over the role to better perform and understand the role.
That's it. Initiative Africa is over for today. It was the last show of this year 2022, but you can find the replays of all our programs on our website africaonair.com and on all our social media channels. Feel free to share, like and comment using the hashtag Initiative Africa. And we will be back next year, same time, same channel, with new editions of both our shows, Business Africa and Initiative Africa. Enjoy the holiday seasons and see you next year. Goodbye.